someone collapses on a crowded street, everyone sees it. And no one does anything. Everyone assumes someone else will call for help. This is the bystander effect, a dark glitch in social psychology, also known as diffusion of responsibility. Why does the presence of other people paralyze our individual instinct to help? How does a group setting switch off our empathy? We are examining the original 1960s research and the modern data to understand the social forces that can overwhelm our own morality. The investigation into this glitch begins in the shadow of a tragic night on March the 13th, 1964. A young woman named Catherine Kitty Genovese was brutally attacked and murdered on her way home. Days later, a story emerged that shocked the nation. A story that seared itself into modern psychology. The New York Times reported that 38 witnesses, 38 citizens, saw or heard the attacks, and not a single one called the police. That story created a national wave of disgust. How apathetic, people wondered, has this city become? Now it is critical to our investigation to clarify. The 38 witnesses story was later proven to be a massive journalistic exaggeration. The truth was more complex. Many didn't see the full event. Some calls were made, but they were too late. But that truth no longer mattered. The damage was done. The story had posed a toxic question, one that two young psychologists couldn't ignore. John Darley and Bib Latane were haunted not by apathy, but by a more disturbing possibility. What if those witnesses failed to act, not in spite of the other witnesses, but because of them? What if safety in numbers was actually a myth? What if, in an emergency, the presence of others wasn't a safety net, but a trap? They took this terrifying hypothesis into the lab. Darley and Latane needed to break down the paralysis. They started with the first barrier in any emergency, noticing it is an emergency. They designed a classic experiment known today as the smoke-filled room study. The setup was simple. Participants were asked to fill out a questionnaire in a waiting room. After a few minutes, smoke began to pour from under a door. When the participant was alone, the results were predictable. They saw the smoke and acted. According to their research published in the Journal of Personality and Social Psychology, 75% of participants who were alone reported the smoke within minutes. Then, they changed the variable. They put the participant in the same room, but this time with two actors, two bystanders, instructed to do nothing. The smoke fills. The participant gets nervous. They look at the actors. The actors remain calm. The participant goes back to their questionnaire. In this condition, only 10% of participants reported the smoke. The majority chose to ignore it, rubbing their eyes and coughing, until the room was so thick they could barely see. This is the first mechanism of failure, pluralistic ignorance. It's a social glitch where people privately disagree with a norm, but incorrectly assume everyone else accepts it. In that room, every person's brain was screaming, "Fire!" But because no one else was acting, they concluded, "I must be wrong. It must be steam. I don't want to look foolish." But what if the emergency is unmistakable? What if someone is clearly in danger? Latane and Darley designed a second test to check the next barrier. Participants were put in individual booths, supposedly to discuss personal problems over an intercom. They couldn't see each other, only hear. This eliminated pluralistic ignorance. They couldn't look for social cues. In each group, one voice was a recording a victim who confessed to being epileptic. Then, during the discussion, that voice began to have a medical emergency. When the participant believed it was just them and the victim, 85% bolted from the booth to find help. But when the participant believed there was one other person listening, that rate dropped to 62%. And when they believed there were 4 other people listening, only 31% acted. This is the second and most sinister mechanism: diffusion of responsibility. The responsibility to help doesn't vanish. It just diffuses. It gets split among all witnesses until each individual's share is so small, so light, that no one feels the weight to act. Everyone freezes, assuming that someone else, more qualified, closer, will make the call. The final mechanism is audience inhibition. This is the simple fear of being judged, the fear of looking foolish, overreacting, or doing things wrong. It's better to do nothing than to do something embarrassing. Together, these 3 forces create a perfect storm of inaction. And in the modern world, the crowd isn't just on the street, it's in your pocket. The digital bystander effect is just as powerful. Research published in Computers and Human Behavior indicates that when we witness cyberbullying or misinformation, the same diffusion of responsibility occurs. 1,000 people see the post. 1,000 people are outraged, and 1,000 people keep scrolling. The digital crowd is watching, and no one acts. Latané and Darley's experiments paint a grim picture of our social nature. But they also hide the key to breaking it. The bystander effect is not unbreakable. It's just a social script, and it can be hacked. The solution lies in reversing its mechanisms. The solution is singularity. If you are the victim, if you need help, never yell, "Someone help me!" That yell is just activating the diffusion. You are talking to everyone, and therefore, talking to no one. You must break the script. You must assign. You look at one person. You, in the red shirt, call 911. In that moment, the dark social magic is broken. You have destroyed pluralistic ignorance by clearly stating this is an emergency. You have annihilated diffusion of responsibility by placing 100% of the burden on a single individual. And you have removed audience inhibition because now it is inaction that would be embarrassing. The bystander effect doesn't exist because we are bad, apathetic people. It exists because we are deeply social creatures, incredibly sensitive to the behavior of those around us. We are wired to follow the crowd, even when that crowd is walking off a cliff of inaction, knowing this is the first line of defense. To recognize the silence of others, not as a sign of safety, but as a symptom of paralysis. The brain is not a perfect machine, but it is a rational one. We have closed the file on the bystander effect, but the archive is still open. There are countless mind glitches left to decode. Comment below with the phenomenon you want us to investigate next. Subscribe and help us build the archive.